What's going on, guys? Today we got an account review for NerdRope96. Now, this player has 5.46 million player power, has been playing for 94 days, so he may be relatable until you open his champions and you get jump scared by all the crazy stuff he has here. So this player's obviously spent some money, and before doing this video, I told him, hey, if I do this review, you're probably gonna get some less than positive comments, but he said that's fine with him. He wants to see the video. He'd like to see it on the channel. So here we go, guys. We're gonna do the video talking about these champions, and it could be useful for some of you, even though these champions are not relatable to me even. These champions are crazy. He has a lot of very good champions, but he's still relatively early in the game. He still has a lot of progression to make, and it's still going to be relatable to a lot of you. So stick around, stay tuned, drop a like on the video, comment down below, positive, preferably, and all that kind of good stuff. Let's get into it. He said that he can handle the mean comments, so don't feel bad. But with that said, let's go ahead and pull up the account showcase snapshot in time. This is the breakdown of his dungeons. Honestly, his dungeon times are looking pretty solid. Like, we have good Iron Twins. It's actually done, which was impressive. Dragon's on 10 hard, but to be honest, we don't really need too much Dragon. Dragon kind of gets pushed to the back burner when you have Lydia. Granted, he doesn't have Lydia yet, but he is well on his way. He should get her really, as the crypts open up, he should be pushing to the top floors like Bannerlord's open today. He should go in here and clear all this. I'm going to talk about that later on, but Lydia will come soon. So Dragon, not really important. Fire Knight, very important. Ice Golem, very important. Minotaur, great for your masteries. And Spider's Den, important for silver. Sand Devil is important as well, but not just yet. Even for an account as stacked as this one, I wouldn't recommend doing Sand Devil just yet. I'm going to dive into more details later on, but Faction Wars not complete. He's farming the higher stages though. One thing with Faction Wars, all of you could benefit from this. That's coming in here, setting up your team presets. I talk about this all the time, but these presets may be already filled out for you, just depending on when you started playing. But all this is a separate preset menu from everything else. So your Faction Wars are separate, your dungeons are separate, your arena is separate, and your Hydra stuff is separate. I believe it's separate. Doom Tower is also separate from everything else as well. So you have a lot of different presets you could make, and setting up Faction War presets just gives you an idea of, hey, these are the champions I'm using in this area. These are the champions I want to build. You can build the presets round to round or just throw the champions in there, but it's going to make the runs quicker, smoother, and overall just easier to actually manage. So Faction Wars getting that done is a nice help, but it's not required, of course. Arena, he's in Gold 5 and Bronze 2. So if you're somebody chilling in Bronze 2, well, you get this stuff to look forward to. You get some mythical champions to look forward to. He's not going to be in Bronze very long. Unsurprisingly, a Venom Mage tried to hit him and lost. And Rosin as well with the old Tyrell threat. So the suggestion here that I'm going to make is for him to start working on 3v3 casually. So keep doing it. You can keep your defense in, but continue moving up every single week, because you're going to get to the missions eventually where you need to get to Silver 3, Silver 4, and eventually Gold 1 for Ramen 2. It's way down the road, but it's better to have it done now, and your champions are more than able to actually do that stuff. But as far as the missions, honestly, Ramen 2 versus Marius, focus on Marius. This dude's more of a game changer than Ramen 2. Ramen 2 is great, but with Polymorph being around, it's a lot bit harder to use him. But Marius, he's a beast. Well, other than literally, he's also a beast. He's so incredibly good. Now, the rest of this review, Faction Wars Arena were good. Clan Boss, he's one keying everything. He's got Wixwell. If you have Wixwell, you're one keying Clan Boss, basically. He is an incredible champion. But one key everything, full auto, easy stuff there. Obviously, a super important area of the game. Now, next up, we have Hydra. Now, this is all one key as well, he said, but there are no presets. So with Hydra, obviously, it's going to be best to make presets because sometimes the things here may not save. I just get nervous about that. But this team has some stuff lacking. There's no provoke champions unless somebody has improvoke gear. There's pretty good damage, but there's decreased speed, decreased defense. I don't think there's a weakened champion. We got some solid damage, but we could definitely push up some big numbers with this. So one thing I'm definitely going to recommend is for him to come in here and start building some serious Hydra teams. And if you don't use it already, the Hell Hades Optimizer will give you some fantastic options for very solid Hydra teams. Now, with that said, you do want to understand why the team is doing well and what your account could do and what it couldn't do. Because even though the Optimizer gives these ideas, these are just player-made ideas. These are not like the best teams, period. So while this says your best team on the Optimizer is 508 million damage, Well, you have different players than what this champion using these players has. So maybe you have your Wallmaster replacing a Krizia. Well, Wallmaster is a beast. Wallmaster is an incredible champion. Throw him in there instead of a Krizia, and you're probably going to do more damage, honestly. Wallmaster is so good. That's just an example. Just because this team is the top damage, you could probably squeeze out more damage. Or maybe you don't have the gears to hit 342 speed on Eostrid. Well, change it up. Go in here, swap some things around, but understanding the core and how the teams function is really what this comes down to. So in this team, we have increased speed and decreased speed from Eostrid. We have Wixwell with the intercept, kind of working for dealing with the head of Torment. We don't really have any great Torment counter here, so the Torment is kind of a problem, probably, unless, Sulfurion doesn't deal with Torment. We don't have any cleansers here. Wixwell with intercept somewhat deals with it, so he'll just spread the intercept throughout the team, and you can probably kill the heads pretty quickly anyways. Lady Mikage can kind of deal with Torment with her A2. We have some burns if you had block buffs from Wallmaster or Thorion, some strips from Michinaki, decreased attack from both of these two champions. So you have a lot of things working together very well, but that's the biggest suggestion I can make is don't blindly copy stuff from the optimizer, because that player may have significantly different gear than what you have, and it may not work anywhere close to how their team's actually working. Understand why the team's working. You see it's working, especially if you exclude manual teams. You see that it's working, so you can take some bits and pieces from that and then build your own team around it. And it may come out looking very similar, but ultimately you want to know why the team's actually working, how you can make your team perform better, where you're going wrong, and what could be fixed. This team actually does have a res champion, Sulfurion. It's a beast. Sulfurion is so good. I would love to have him. So congrats there on this guy, as well as Nerd Rope for having Sulfurion. I would love to have him. Now with that said, come in here, do a Nightmare team, and then do Brutal and Hard. And then eventually in time, you can push up to higher damage. You have the champions, I believe, for a Yannicka team as well. You have Emic, Yannicka. I know you have Yannicka. She's free. What in the world? Where's Yannicka? What's going on here? No Yannicka. Okay, let's see who else you have. You have Wixwell, good. You have Emic, good. You have Krisk, good. You have Nia, good. Who else was using that team? I forget, but I know you have them. Tatura. You use Tatura. Okay. Duchess. Okay, maybe he needs a Duchess. Duchess, Tatura. One of those two could be really good. Trying to think of another champion who's a Veil. I can't think of anybody off the top of my head just yet. Buffs, Veil to deal with the fears. We also want we don't really need to increase attack. Tatura is good. Decrease accuracy is good, but honestly, what is Glycat? Does he bring a Veil? Yeah, he brings a Veil, so he probably does good as well. Honestly, he could do great. He could probably go in there into the Yannicka team. The Yannicka team would jump in there, go to your Nightmare setup, an easy couple billion damage, assuming you could set it up to do the proper, survivability, stay alive, do the big nuke with Yannicka, which I'm talking about Yannicka because you will get her. The clan shop right here, you have Yannicka fragments. You're working toward her slowly but surely. You'll get her, and when you do, you build your Yannicka team. Okay, it's going to be a little while. Okay, it's not going to be that fast, unfortunately, but maybe you pull her before that, and you can build her. Now, you have Trunda as well. Let's get your Trunda team set up. Pretty easy stuff there. Honestly, what I would do is, with the Trunda team, you're going to have to go with the Nia setup, Nia and Emic. So I would recommend to stop feeding, or stop, okay, well, you already got a +4 Nia who has full blessings. This other one, don't feed her. Get her up to 6-star because you're going to most likely want at least 2 of them, maybe even more. Start collecting your Nias. Don't feed them because you're going to want 1 or 2 maybe for the Trunda team, at least 1, and then 1 for the Yannicka team at least. So those 2 can be great. My Trunda team, I run on normal right now because my Trunda is not quite good enough to run on hard, but you could run normal or hard with your Trunda team, do a couple billion damage with that one. For Brutal, you could build an actual legit team. And then for Nightmare, you could do a Yannicka team. So then you'd be in the spot of dealing, say 2 to 7 billion on Nightmare, a couple million, 100 million on Brutal. And then for normal or hard, you could do a couple billion as well there with the Trunda setup. So dedicating yourself to Hydra is going to be very important. At the bare minimum, though, just get the top chest on all of these. I know your clan downs everything, so that's great. But get the top chest everywhere so you can start getting the good rewards. Ideally, help your clan get good placing in Hydra Clash so you can get these rewards as well. But when it comes to specific Hydra teams, I don't think me going in here and putting something in there is going to be as beneficial as you understanding what you're actually going to be looking for in Hydra. So this real quick overview, debuffs that are important in Hydra: decrease defense, weaken, decrease attack, hex, provoke, block buffs. These are super important. Decrease speed. These ones are all super important and basically a requirement. You could bring in HP burn. It's very helpful, not required, but it is extremely helpful. I believe that is all the main ones, and leech as well. Leech is very, very helpful, but if you have some good healers, not needed. So that's the main debuffs you really want to bring. You really, really need all of these ones at least. And then for buffs, the ones you really want is a increased speed, a Veil or champion like Inquisitor Shamel, increase attack if you have attack-based damage dealers, and increase defense and strengthen if you can bring both of those. If not, try to get some extra survivability, extra protection, better yet, because increased defense and strengthen are going to make a huge difference in your team's sustainability versus not having those. Block debuffs, super valuable, but the thing with that is if you don't have a mischief tank, it's going to be difficult to actually keep that block debuffs, and the heads are going to steal it. The head of mischief is going to steal it. It's going to spread it potentially, and you could be in a worse situation than you were originally, especially for like most players. If you don't have a strip champion, just be very careful with bringing block debuffs. It's great if it stays on your champions, but if it gets stolen, it's pretty unfortunate. So let's move on to the next area to talk about, which is going to be Doom Tower. Now, this is something I really want you to focus on. Doom Tower, and I have a list down below that I'm going to show you of like specific orders to take and kind of like the priority list. But Doom Tower, getting through hard mode, this rotation isn't like so required, okay? This rotation's good. The top boss, I forget what it even is. What is this? I forget. What rotation is this? It's Frostbiter. Okay, so Frostbiter, you want to farm Doom Tower and you want to consistently do this, but Dark Fae is a rotation where you have to do it. Like, you have to climb the Doom Tower floors. You have to get to the top floor. You have to be farming lethal. It is so incredibly good. But for now, start working on building some teams for the Doom Tower climbing. Unfortunately, strangely enough, this account has no Kymar, no Yumiko, and no Crixia. It has a Krisk, but no Crixia. We have some Renegades, I'm sure, but really no reset champions. So instead, you're going to take the approach of controlling the waves and just obliterating them. So you have the perfect obliterating champion, which is Siegfried. Now his gear, we can possibly adjust this. I'm going to talk about that in just a minute. But Siegfried's a great damage dealer. You have Lazarius, who's a great damage dealer. If we look for some champions who can control, you have Mikage, who can go in for the stuns. You have Ragash, who can do AoE stuns. If we look for an AoE provoke champion, similar thing. Krisk can be thrown in here for some great protection. So a team that goes full auto, climb through the floors, is really what you're looking for. Alaz does some great damage in the second form. AoE attacks with some true fears. You're not going to get polymorphed in the dungeons, or sorry, the Doom Tower, so you're going to be okay. You can go into these forms, you can do this stuff. So build a team to auto through the floors, start doing Doom Tower regularly, and getting to the top. I mean, there's tons of free rewards. It's very much worth it. And also getting the secret rooms done. The secret rooms are going to unlock some pretty solid champions for you as well. I mean, if we look at this Doom Tower list, we have the first one, not that great. Thea kind of gets ignored, but Uros is great, especially for doing other Doom Tower stuff like Scarab King. But then we have Varl, very good, and we have a few rares that are solid as well. Dark Kale, Akoth, Archmage, several that are very solid over there, who you may not think you'll use, but in the Cursed City they pop up, and various different like epic-only events they do pop up. So it is important to focus on Doom Tower, especially the Dark Fae rotation. It's so, so helpful. Now, the general account suggestions, this is what I recommend. Finish Faction Wars #1. Faction Wars is going to allow you access to some of the best gear in the game. That's Perception gear. So Perception, at first it may not seem super important, but eventually you're going to start getting a bunch of double roll speeds, triple roll speeds with good accuracy, and it's going to be put onto your champions that are in your best content. For example, if you had a Armons on this account, which you don't, a Warlord on this account, which also you don't have that either, unfortunately, but those two champions work fantastic with 4-piece Stone Skin and then filling in the missing with Perception gear. Lysandra, very perception-heavy champion. Lysandra, don't have Lysandra either. How come you have so many mythical champions, but none of the legendaries I'm talking about? Either way, Eostrid, very good in perception. She has some. It's a 6-star piece there. a 5-star piece there. So working towards more 6 stars is going to be great, but perception is extremely valuable for everybody in the game. The best way to get it, or the only way to get it, is through faction war farming and getting the materials to actually forge it. Plus your glyphs. Glyphs are going to make or break a lot of your teams. They are extremely important as well. And Faction Wars is the only place you're going to get them. You have a very low stockpile of glyphs. So make sure you're doing Faction Wars every day. Make sure you're climbing it every day. So it's a high priority to come in here. Focus on what champions you want to use to actually climb up to higher stages. When it comes to Faction War climbing, it's really not that difficult. Damage dealers need to be taken to 60 because they need to survive and do damage. Supports, well, they can be left at 50 typically because they just need to survive and keep the other champions alive to the best of their ability. So damage dealers have a much higher gear threshold, whereas supports, it's not really that big of a deal. So in this setup, honestly, you could get your one other damage dealer to 60. Your Raglan, you can take her to 60 if you want it. This account has spent some money, obviously, so it's a little bit different recommendations here. But put them in 200 plus speed gear, give them good HP, good defense, and they're gonna be fine. All right, guys, so I was just now in the middle of recording this video. My lights shut off in my room. The switch next to me is linked up, and this wall is where electricity is coming from. My computer may just shut off in a moment, and I really hope it doesn't. I really hope it doesn't shut off. Guys, so I'm back now. The internet did in fact shut off, but not in our entire house. It was just the plug where the internet goes into. That plug specifically shut off because of the storm. I need to figure out what's going on with that electricity side because I don't know what's going on. Everything else was fine. My PC was still on. Everything was good, which is why that was so confusing. But either way, the next thing we're talking about is Hydra. So Hydra, do all 3 difficulties: Nightmare, Brutal, and then Hard. Unless you want to go in high clash damage, then go to normal Hydra. It's easier to get trended to do that until, of course, you can get into the hard mode difficulties. Now, Hydra is very interesting. So you're going to get Mithrala. She's an amazing champion, but you're also going to get a bunch of protection and stone skin gear. Now, protection gear is going to help you get better Hydra teams, better arena teams, better general teams, and stone skin is going to help you a ton with PvP. You really need some good stone skin gear. And then I want to mention hard mode Cursed City. I tried to add this in the previous recording, but since it kicked me off the internet, I wasn't able to make this space. But hard mode Cursed City. This is super important for where you're at in the game. Cursed City is going to give you Merciless as well as Supersonic gear. Supersonic is great, but Merciless, man, that's where everything, it's so good. The 6-piece allows you to ignore 35% defense. The 4-piece, you can match 2 accessories, 2 top pieces, allows you to have a 30% chance to decrease a random skill's cooldown by 1 turn. And then the 9-piece, things get crazy here. You get a 15% chance at an extra turn, but you also get all the previous bonuses as well. So Merciless, super important to get. It can be used on support champions, can be used on damage dealers. It's definitely worth doing. And I noticed that you haven't done too much in Cursed City. We have 4 days left. So come in here, normal, you're doing good. But your account is to the point where you could definitely start gearing some champions and coming in here. And let's take a look at Garrel real quick, for example. So she's in good Savage gear. This one Garrel can probably solo it, honestly. We'll start on auto. Let's see what this big girl can do. So she does the wrong thing to start off with, but it still works. It does fine. She didn't switch forms like she should have. Still didn't switch forms like she should have. I don't know why she's not switching forms to the only thing that can do damage. So we're going to do the little swapperoo there. Put her in the form she's supposed to be in, the angry orc form with the raging fire mallet thing. And she smacks all the waves. GG's, and you're on to the next one. So it's an easy Cursed City clear right there. And you can start clearing at least this first initial spot. Cobble Market, super easy. Pick up some of the ball stages, get you some Merciless or Supersonic artifacts or accessories, but definitely do this. The gear here is just invaluable. You need it so much if you really want to push the limits of your account. Up next, let's talk about pushing 3v3. So 3v3 content, the reason why I put it down here so low is because as you're working on Hydra, as you're working on finishing Faction Wars, as you're working on Cursed City, you're going to kind of in a way be working on 3v3 as well. What I mean by that is some of the damage dealers that you're using in Hydra could come over to 3v3 also. So you have Sun Wukong, great Hydra champion. You have Harima, great Hydra champion. Those champions also happen to be incredible 3v3 champions. Siegfried, great for Doom Tower clears. Narcisse, maybe you're building him for Faction Wars, or maybe you're building him for some Cursed City content. But a bunch of different champions are going to be fantastic for 3v3, but you're also going to use them in other areas. I'm a big fan of getting use out of as many areas as possible for a specific champion. So with focusing on 3v3, you can do it kind of casually right now, but you definitely want to do it because these higher ranks are going to give you a Sacred Shard every so often once you get the 30,000 points, some accessories, legendary skill tomes. You get some good rewards up here. It's relatively easy to farm once you get into gold. It's just climbing. But for now, you're going to want to continually climb each week because you don't need to be in bronze 2, right? You already know your account's way past this point. So getting into silver 3, silver 4, and you could probably chill there for a little while. If you can get into gold, great. But if not, no worries, because you are going to need to farm quite a bit of gear because the gear is somewhat needing, it's needing improvement, okay? Your account's 90 days old. Gear is going to be one of the biggest things lagging, and that's the case for your account. I'll go over that in a minute. It's not bad, but there's some things we need to change and make it so much better. So we talked about Doom Tower, secret rooms, and climbing in general. Again, we'll focus on that. And now we'll talk about building and optimizing Ice Golem. But the reason why Ice Golem plus Fire Knight, the reason why you want to do that is because Ice Golem's going to have Cursed, Reflex, Provoke, somewhat Retaliation. These are going to be amazing in-game sets. Specifically, Cursed and Provoke, incredible for Hydra. It allows champions who couldn't fill a role, now they're able to fill a role. For example, Krisk and Cursed, incredible. Necmo and Hex, incredible. Or in Provoke. I did say Krisk and Cursed, right? Because Krisk and Provoke, you don't need that. But now you're able to have champions who filled a few roles before, now they're able to fill so many more roles. So make sure you're pushing an Ice Golem. You could get to 9 hard relatively easily. You have Artak, good HP burners. Just essentially get the HP burn champions to the boss and then keep them alive. That's really all there is. You don't want War Master. You don't want really any damage because the Ice Golem's going to do the slam. But 9 hard with Artak and regeneration is pretty simple, honestly. You can do that. Right now, it may take a little while for you to get the gear to actually do so, but you have Sulfurion as well. These two champions can duo it relatively easily. So work on that with a big main focus for your account. But in addition to Ice Golem, these two are going to kind of work together. Fire Knight. Fire Knight 6, that's fine. If you want to push to 10, go for it. But 6 hard, I would definitely work on doing it regularly because you really need Savage and Regeneration. Stun is nice, but these are the two main sets you need. Regeneration is going to spill over into Ice Golem to help you farm that a little bit quicker, a little bit easier. And Savage is going to help you out with every area. You're going to need to do a ton of Fire Knight. You can have 5, 6 good Savage sets. That's not even going to be too much. Ice Golem, on the other hand, if you have 5 good sets of Cursed, that's more than you need. You honestly only need like 2 or 3 good Cursed sets, good Provoke sets, and you're going to be fine from that point. So let's move over to look at your gear. Now, I was mentioning a lot, farming is very important for you, and it's so true because your account, you have excellent champions, amazing options, but your 5-star and 6-star split isn't great. So I want to see this with a lot more 6-star gear. And how you're going to do that is you're going to start farming Fire Knight, Ice Golem, doing your Cursed City, doing your Doom Tower, doing your Forging, and start selling most of your 5-star stuff. Go in there now. Sell most of your 5-star stuff. You can complete Faction Wars with some 5-star stuff equipped to those champions, but once you get Faction Wars done, you really don't need any 5-star stuff at all. So do a lot of farming. Keep a lot of that 6-star stuff. Whenever 3x or boosted Savage events come around, go hard there. Same thing with Regeneration. Cursed, we currently have that for Ice Golem, so come in here, work on some Ice Golem stuff, and go hard here. If 3 is the hardest you can do, just do 3 quite a bit. Now with this team, Authorion's probably going to proc the slam. Theodore's not bad. He does activate the burn, so it's not the worst thing. Arbiter is good to keep you alive, but if you have a champion like Pythion, he's great. He's a very sustainable champion. If you have like an Elva as well, Elva's a very good champion for this. You don't have her, it's okay. But we're looking for a res champion who can be very sustaining as well. So those are some options, but getting them to the boss, getting the HP burn to activate, that's really all you need for Ice Golem. It's a pretty simple team. Just activate on the waves, get to the boss, control the waves if you can so they don't end up cleansing anything. Get to the boss and you're good to go basically. So now let's go ahead and take a look at the accessories. The accessories, basically, very similar breakdown. But to be honest, I'm much more strict on the accessories than I am the artifacts. Accessories, you're farming Spider all the time. You're getting tons of 6-star accessories. You really don't need 5-star stuff. So sell basically all of your 5-star accessories, except for like the unique sets. Your Merciless, Supersonic, Stone Skin. The unique pieces that work towards those 9-piece sets, keep those because you will need something to fill it in for the future. They're very important. And with gearing, I always recommend purchasing the Forge Pass. Forge Passes, especially Slayer, are so good. Honestly, all of them are incredible. You spend money, so I assume you purchase the Forge Passes anyways, but definitely, they are well worth the investment. Picking up the Forge Pass, you get Forge materials, you get the gear, you get a lot of good stuff. Looks like you did not purchase the Slayer Pass. Actually, you don't purchase them. So I do recommend that very highly. The Slayer set is amazing on Wallmaster. I mean, 6-piece, so good on him. So definitely try to get that if at all possible. Now let's look at the gear suggestions I have down here at the bottom. So your dungeon priority, Fire Knight, Ice Golem, Spider, and Sand Devil and Shogun. The reason why I put those after is because you heard it before. If you watched the channel for a while, you already know that Sand Devil and Shogun, I always say, are amazing. You're eventually going to farm those more than anything else in the game. But for now, you're basically making your gear that could be more easily upgraded from dungeons. You're upgrading with Sand Devil, making it harder to replace, but wasting your energy when you could be, getting your 6-star upgrades from these 3 dungeons, basically, instead of doing Sand Devil or Shogun. There will come a time where you've got a good stockpile of crit damage gloves, and you don't really need more crit damage. Well, everybody needs more crit damage gloves, but you're going to get more likelihood of having upgrades come from Sand Devil ascending your gear to crit rate, crit damage, attack percentage, whatever it may be, than you would dumping another couple thousand energy into Fire Knight or whatever it may be to get you some good crit damage gloves. So the crit damage gloves on your account currently, you got 7. Crit damage with crit rate substats, you got 3, and one of those is a 5-star piece. So clearly, we need some more good quality nuker stuff in your account. That's something I put down here for this list. Crit damage, HP percentage, and speed. Obviously, crit damage is for the gloves, HP percentage is for the chest and the gloves, and then speed is for the boots. These are the most common pieces you're going to use, and having plenty of them, super important. Now, of course, you want good attack percentage, you want good boots with attack or HP percentage or defense percentage, but those need speed, those need crit rate, because those typically go on a damage dealer or support you're trying to build very tanky. But for substats, you're going to want to look for crit, speed, and accuracy. If all of those are missing on the piece period, you're probably not going to use it. Not all the time. Sometimes you can build champion without that stuff, but majority of the time, if it doesn't have at least one of those pieces somewhere on the piece, you're just not going to use it. For example, if it's a boot with HP percentage and then like resistance, accuracy, HP, and flat defense, that's a pretty garbage pair of boots. If it's a HP percentage with speed on that pair of boots, well, now we're talking a potential good support piece. So something to consider when building the champions and knowing what to farm and what you're kind of looking for. These pieces are kind of the most popularly used, especially like on my account. That's what I tend to lean towards. Damage dealers are getting crit damage gloves. Speed boots are needed everywhere. HP percentage chest plates just scale the best. HP percentage in general scales the best. Doesn't mean you don't want defense percent. You do. It's great. But HP percentage doesn't cap like defense percentage does. On a defense champion, of course, you want defense percentage. But on a champion like, let's say, Eostrid, your defense is going to kind of cap around 4,000. So from that point on, you're going to want to stack HP percentage or get some accuracy and things like that. You can get a lot of defense from these accessories as well. So just something to keep in mind there, but look out for that, especially crit damage gloves. You really want to start getting your damage dealers into harder nuking it sets and setups. So I have a whole breakdown here. I'm not going to go over this just yet because there's no reason to. I want to look at some of your champions, but this is a whole breakdown as to like how I would start progressing your gear to the next level and how you can start moving into that next tier of the game essentially. But looking at some of your champions, let's look at your best built damage dealers. So I'm going to go to equipped and see who all's in Savage. So we have Trunda, Garrel, Lenathril for whatever reason, but Trunda and Garrel. So those two are in Savage sets. Obviously, they're for damage dealers. So let's take a look at this Garrel build at first. She is in Savage. If we look at her actual stats, she has decent speed, very low crit damage, and okay attack. Switch to base form 2, where it's actually where she's going to do damage. Good attack, low crit damage, okay speed. Now, this is good. She has crit rate gloves on, which you're going to be able to get a lot more crit damage if you were to switch these gloves, or what you could do is just rely on getting crit damage from everything else. But you need to have really good crit damage rolls in order to do that from everywhere else. So what we're going to do is we're going to open the Hell Hades Optimizer, and we're going to go ahead and see if we can pull up a Garrel build that would be better than the one you already have. If you haven't used the Optimizer before, this would be a great showcase of how it actually works. So Geralt's right here. We're going to go form 2. We're going to go optimize, damage mode, 200 speed, and then include it from everybody. This is just be an example. It's not how we're actually going to do it, but this does bring up another point. When you're building your champions, you don't need to have gear on everybody in your account. So what you should do is come in here, decide what champions you're going to use the most of, and then focus on those champions having your best gear. Now, I don't want to focus for that form. I want to focus for this form. So what I mean is like, okay, we come in here real quick. We can see some of your champions are missing some pieces. Like this guy, he's missing 2 pieces. So this gear is just being wasted on him. He's missing 3 pieces. Michinaki's built. You have some champions who are built, some champions are missing gear. But come in here, what I recommend is getting your faction war stuff organized. Get your arena teams laid out the way you want them to. Get your Hydra teams laid out in a way you want it to. And then start gearing your champions that you're using in the most areas in your best possible gear. So arena champions, they don't really have a cap on their builds. So like, for example, if you're running a champion in dungeons, you don't need tons of accuracy. Same thing in Hydra. You don't need tons of accuracy or tons of resistance. Whereas in the arena, you can use 700 accuracy. That's not a problem whatsoever. But in Hydra, it's way overkill. So the champions you're using in the arena, those same champions could be used in other areas with most likely great success. For example, Harima for Hydra, if she's built really well, will also work incredible for arena, 3v3, classic, live arena, whatever it may be. So for some reason, I want this to switch to her other form. There we go. So battle, let's see, configure, no, presets, sorry. Base form, no, alternate form. There we go. Okay, I thought clicking over would make it work, but it doesn't. So now we're actually optimizing for the correct form. I want 100% crit rate though. I don't know why it's not giving me 100% crit rate. So this build right here, she's still, actually no, she's really good in Slayer as well. I don't know why, I forgot about that. But Geralt is a monster in Slayer. You have 1 Slayer necklace. That's pretty decent, honestly. This banner, we don't really need that. But this, get her a 6-piece Slayer, should be tearing stuff up. But you don't have very much Slayer, so we really can't do that. 1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah, so 4-piece. We really just want 6-piece. So we do want to get the defense ignore, but this will do a lot more damage. Now, you could rebuild her now, or you could just wait for a little while and rebuild her once you have a bit more Savage gear. But if we go sets, add a set, say Savage specifically, we could see what the best Savage set would be for her with at least 200 speed. I got a feeling it's not the one you have currently. So 99 crit rate. You may just need a little bit better gear at the moment to really make things work. This is a little bit better, but it's still not crazy. So I wouldn't even worry about changing this, honestly. What I would focus on is getting your champions to a point where it makes more. Honestly, Lazarius may be a better champion to put as a damage dealer because he's a 6-star blessing. Same thing with your Alaz. Both of these champions are 6-star blessings. It's going to be easier to hit those high stats. Plus, they both have Crushing Rend. So while Geralt is incredible, it may make more sense to just have these 2 as your damage dealer. Lazarius, far easier to build to hit hard because he's at 6-star blessing. Crushing Rend is going to ignore a lot of defense anyways. But essentially what it comes down to is while you're working up, don't worry about spreading your gear to everybody and having everybody perform a role decent. Try to focus on having the champions you use in the most areas perform the roles the best they can, basically. So when it comes to your gearing, over the next couple weeks, couple months, you're going to want to do a lot of Fire Knight and Ice Golem. A lot of those. 6-star pieces, upgrade them, keep them, progress your account that way. Get the Forge Pass when it comes. Finish Faction Wars, do this stuff. Basically, just visit everything I got laid out, and hopefully that can help you out. Your account's in a great spot. You have a lot of great champions, and your gearing's not bad. Let's click through a few more champions and see how they look. So, who is the other person? Trunda. Trunda's right here. The Trunda build, also pretty low crit damage. Speed is okay. Attack is kind of low as well. The Harima build, she's not built. The Narcisse, he needs good HP. It's okay HP. Pretty good crit damage. Actually, really solid crit damage. Speed's a little bit slow depending on where you want to use it, but 200 speed, I can't complain about that. So thumbs up there. But he's in no defense ignore set. It's gonna make a huge difference going from this to defense ignore set. His stuff's not bad, but you want to get him into instinct, lethal, savage as soon as possible, basically. Now, looking at some of your supports, you actually had these geared very well also. Like Cardiel, he's fast. You are prioritizing speed very well. I love to see that. In my opinion, your supports are geared on point. Your supports are geared very well. You know what you're doing there. With the damage dealers, I don't think you don't know what you're doing. Like, I think you know what you're doing, but I think you just need better gear to actually execute on what your plans are. Like I said, your supports, they're on point. They're looking solid. I like this. Your Arbiter's fast, very impressive for day 90. Your Lazarius, is he a support or damage? So, I mean, he's built pretty well also. Like he's hitting, good support, good damage. He has the stats he needs. Your Mikage, she's fast, she's good. Like your supports are on point. We just need to give some more love to your damage dealers. Your Siegfried, while his stuff isn't awful, these stats would be much better if it was in Savage. If it was in Savage, these stats would be, okay, that's acceptable. I like that. That's a pretty solid hitting Siegfried. Similar thing with Wallmaster. We want his stats to be much higher, ideally in something like Slayer, because it's going to ignore more defense, going to give him the turn meter boost. This isn't bad by no means, but if we could get a set in here, even a 4-piece Slayer, boost his turn meter, and make this 214 speed seem much higher, because he'd be getting all the AoE attacks, right? Like his A1 is AoE, his A2 is AoE, everything he does, except for this A3, but he gets an extra turn, is AoE. So that's the account review. That's my suggestions, my opinions, my advice on your account. If you have any questions, don't hesitate to shoot me a message. I'll answer your questions. In general, your account's in a really good spot, though, to be honest. And if anybody else is out there in a similar spot to this account or a similar progression in the game, I would say that for most players, this is going to be your focus. Faction Wars, Hydra Curse City, Push 3v3, Doom Tower, and then Ice Golem and Fire Knight, super important. Dragon, only farm it when it's got 3x speed event or for fusion. Other than that, don't even worry about it. Sand Devil is coming up very soon, but I would like for you to wait until you start getting, say, like 500-600 pieces of 6-star gear, and then you start having much less 5-star. So like 500 or 600 6-star, and then maybe like 100 or less 5-star, 50 or less 5-star. Really start weeding out that 5-star stuff. Honestly, most of it could be sold right now. The only 5-star stuff that I typically keep is maybe Merciless, maybe some Stone Skin, possibly the very well-rolled protection pieces, but in general, majority Slayer sometimes. Majority of the 5-star stuff is just sold though. So guys, if you're interested in having a review done for your account, click the link down below. Get signed up for a review for dungeons, clan boss, Hydra, whatever it may be. I can get you some help, guys. Thank y'all for watching. I appreciate you all. Thank you to Nerd Rope, and I'll catch you in the next one.